Hi! You know how in my last sewing plans video I talked about wanting to make a blazer? Well, not long after that my grandmother sent me this blazer in the mail, and it made me realize blazers aren't really my style. Then, pretty much 2 days later, the Black Friday sales began, and French Navy Patterns, one of my favorite pattern designers, had the Portmanteau Shacket up for, I believe it was like 50% off, but it may have been 25% off. And so I bought the pattern. I am going to make this instead of a blazer, and then there's another jacket I want to make as well, but I will talk about that either later in this video or in the next video. This jacket has two views. There's style A, which has these slant pockets, and I believe this one is partially lined in the front. And then there's style B, which has patch pockets, and it is unlined. And then for the back, style A has a pleat at the back, and then style B just has a seam at the back. I like how style B looks better than style A, so I'm going to be making style B, but I'm going to make the whole thing lined just for added warmth. Something that is iconic about shackets really is that they're plaid, like flannel. I know I said I was going to use this to make a pair of pants, but instead I think I'm going to use it to make the shacket. I think this is a nice material for like a shacket type thing. It's very drapey, so I think it'll be very comfortable as a shacket. And to line it, I'm going to use this polyester. I'm pretty sure it's polyester. I got it at the thrift store, but I think these go nicely together, and this peeking out. When you see the lining from under this, I think that'll look really nice. I am also contemplating quilting the lining with a fleece blanket that I have had for years and has seen better days, just to make the shacket a little bit warmer. And those are my plans, so let's get going. It's the next day. I'm just popping in quick to share a quick project update. I've decided instead of using that green plaid fabric, I'm going to use this brownish green fabric I have. I believe it's a wool. I got it at the thrift store. I think that this will be lovely as the exterior of this jacket. I think it'll give it a bit of a workwear feel, because it has a very faint plaid pattern on it. I don't know if you can see it on the camera. And then I'm still going to use this as the lining, and I think these go very nice together. When the lining pops out, it'll go quite nicely. In fact, I think this goes even better with this fabric than with the other fabric. The other fabric I decided not to use because I really want to make a pair of pants out of it. I think it'll make a lovely pair of trousers. That's the plan for that fabric again, because that was the plan initially. I want to line the entire thing. View A is half lined in the front. View B is completely unlined. But if I use the lining pieces of this, I think I might be able to line the entire jacket. I have a plan for that so that there's no exposed seams, except for perhaps the arm side might be exposed. I will probably bind that with bias binding though. I want to have this even in the sleeves. I'm pretty sure I have enough. I think I have 2 or 3 meters here, so I should be able to line the entire thing. I don't remember exactly when I filmed that intro, but it's a month, maybe 2 months later. This pattern has been cut out since I filmed that intro, but I got distracted by making these curtains instead. I brought this in here so that you could see how thin this is. There's 4 layers of fabric and then 1 layer of paper. So that's not going to keep me very warm at all. I was thinking of quilting the lining of the coat so that it's warmer. My neighbor's over there. I'm going to ignore him. I have this blanket that I've had for probably a decade. It is polyester. It is very pilly and unpleasant against the skin, but it still functions well as a blanket. I'll quilt my lining pieces with this blanket. I just read all of the pattern instructions for how you're supposed to construct this jacket, and because I'm making like these alterations such as lining the full jacket and quilting the lining, I think I'm gonna have to make some changes to the construction. I am not gonna quilt every lining piece of the jacket because I think that'll make it too bulky in places. So I think I'm gonna quilt the sleeves, the front, and then the lower back piece. There's a yoke on the back. I'm not gonna quilt that because that'll be too thick, but I am gonna quilt the lower back because I'm doing view B. There isn't a pleat there, so I think that won't mess up the look of the jacket too much. This blanket is pretty stretchy, and I don't want to stretch it while I'm quilting it. So I considered using a quilting foot, an even quilting foot, but I still think that that might cause it to bubble a little. So I think I'm going to do the quilting by hand, which is going to take a long time, but I'm on vacation right now, so I can quilt it by hand while watching something pleasant on TV, probably The X-Files. Next time you see me, I will have my lining pieces quilted and I will be starting the construction process. It's a couple days later. It took 2 days, but I finished quilting the lining to the fleece blanket. I really like how it looks. I think it looks gorgeous. I don't know if you can see, but I did like a diamond pattern and I think it's very pretty. I did end up doing the yoke as well, which I cut out in the same fabric as the exterior instead of the lining. Considering how I'm going to construct this, I think I'm going to start by sewing the two back pieces together along the center back with both the lining and the exterior, so around along this seam, and then I will sew both pieces to the yoke. Then I'll come back and tell you what's next. I've sewn the yoke to the back pieces. So now I'm going to put this aside and work on the front. And to start the front, I have to work on the pockets, which I will do now. It's a couple days later. I am now done my vacation. Today's my first day back to work, so progress on this will be much more sporadic. But over the last couple days, I did construct the pockets the way that French Navy patterns describes for you to put them together. And if I may say so myself, these are the most beautifully installed pockets I've ever done. And they're just patch pockets. But this is part of what I love about French Navy patterns so much, is she always teaches me a new technique to finish something in a more beautiful way. Then I attached the front panels to the yoke. I had to use the burrito method to be able to do this, and the thickness of both the back and the front panels all rolled into the tiny yoke was pretty tricky to get looking neat, but I'm pretty sure I got at least within 1/8 of an inch of the proper seam allowance. And then I pulled out the front panels from the neck hole like the pattern tells you to, and I top stitched along those yokes. And because I really liked how the two lines of top stitching looked on the pockets, I did that on the back yoke as well as the front yoke, so they all have 2 lines of top stitching. Unfortunately, it's not the tidiest on the front yoke, but that's fine because people don't like actually stare at your stitch lines to see if they're tidy, contrary to common belief. And then I sewed the side seams individually. So on the left side, I sewed the exterior fabric side seam and then the lining side seam separately, and then did the same thing on the right side, so 4 side seams sewn individually. And then I could try on the jacket. I'll post a video here of me trying it on. I found that I really did not like where it was hitting. The hem of this jacket takes about 4 centimeters. You fold it over 1 centimeter and then again 3 centimeters. But I still think that this jacket will hit in a place that I don't find the most flattering. So I've decided that I'm going to remove my most beautiful pockets I've ever made and trim the jacket because I want it to end at high hip. So I'm going to trim it 7 centimeters. I'll measure properly, don't worry. And then reattach the pockets higher up in a way that the hem of the jacket will not interfere with the pockets at all. And then I will continue the pattern as instructed. It's a couple days later. I'm here to film an update. So on the first day that I worked on this, I shortened the jacket by carefully removing the pockets and then cutting off 3 inches consistently along the whole hem. And then I carefully put the pockets back on, and I managed to get them looking just as good as I did the first time, which is great because I was really proud of how those pockets turned out. Then I also sewed the side seams of all 4 sleeve pieces, the lining and the exterior pieces, and then that's all I could do before I had to go to work that day. Then the next day, I attached the sleeves to the jacket, and I did this in a bit of a tricky way. I don't know if there's a better way to do this, but this is what made sense in my brain. I had the jacket right side out, and I put the lining sleeve into the arm side, right side touching, so the lining was touching the lining. And then I carefully bunched the jacket and the lining sleeve into a small bundle so that it could fit through the armhole of the exterior sleeve. And I fed that sleeve right sides together over that bundle and then pinned and sewed around that. It was a little tricky to get the proper seam allowance because it was so thick there. I'm not sure if I should have lined the sleeves because it made it quite a bit bulkier. And then once I was done sewing that, I pulled the exterior sleeve down over so that it was the right way out, and then I reached into the exterior sleeve and pulled the lining sleeve out and lined up the hems. When I tried it on after putting on the first sleeve, I wasn't sure that I liked how it looked. I thought it looked too suit and not like the vibe that I was going for, which is more like a Carhartt type thing. The plaid was more visible than I expected, and it just looked a little too bougie for my taste. But when I added the second sleeve, I liked how it looked after that. To hem the sleeve, I folded in the lining 3/8 of an inch and then matched the exterior fabric as well 3/8 of an inch, and then I sewed around that with a 1/4 inch seam allowance, and then I sewed around it again right on the edge of the sleeve so that there's 2 lines of stitching there again, because that is a repeating motif in the construction of this jacket, 2 lines of stitching. I used less seam allowance in the sleeves than the pattern called for, so the sleeves are quite a bit longer than they're supposed to be in my jacket, but I like that I can fold up the cuffs because then you can see all my hard work on the quilting on the cuffs, and that pop of green plaid on the cuffs I think just looks adorable. Today I'm hoping to finish this jacket. We will see if I succeed, because quite often when I say I'm going to finish a thing today, I don't. Example, these curtains. I said I was going to finish them 3 or 4 times. Things take a while, you know, and that's okay. I have to hem the jacket, attach the button placket, do the collar stand and the collar, and then do the buttonholes, and I have to choose buttons. I'm probably going to sew the buttonholes by hand because I hate doing them by machine. I can't get my machine to make my buttonholes consistent, and my hand sewn buttonholes aren't all that impressive, but at least they're more consistent than the machine buttonholes, and also it'll make this jacket look a little bit more handmade, which is starting to be my aesthetic. I used to want to make things so that they looked like they were store-bought, but now I'm like, the whole appeal of this is that I made it, and people won't be able to tell that I made it unless there's little flaws in it, you know? And I spent a lot of time quilting this jacket. I want people to know that I made it, and the buttonholes sewn by hand will show that. Yeah, let's get to work. Later the same day, I've exercised and showered, so I probably look cleaner. I finished attaching the placket at the same time you hem the jacket. It's all one seam. Okay, I liked how it looked once I had pinned the placket into place and pinned the hem into place, but once I actually sewed it, I thought it looked really bad. I ironed it really well and then it looked better. I've constructed the collar following the pattern instructions. Then I attached the collar and collar stand to the jacket. I had a bit too much fabric, so I did a little pleat in the center back, and I included a bit of twill tape so that I can hang it from the twill tape. While I was doing the 2 lines of top stitching around the collar stand, I ran out of thread. So now I have to find more green thread. Hopefully I have more because I'm halfway through the 2nd line of top stitching, and then I will hand sew the buttons and the buttonholes off camera, and the next time you see me will be for the reveal. Well, it's done. Overall, I really enjoyed the process of making this jacket. It was very fun to make, and I really enjoyed thinking of different ways to make it so that the inside is all clean and the exterior is all clean. I'm really glad that I cropped the jacket because I really like this length. I think that it's a flattering length on my body type. The longer sleeves that I can cuff I think is really cute. My hand-stitched buttonholes don't even look super hand-stitched, and the fray check didn't stain. I've washed this jacket and then tumble dried it to make sure that I can wash it easily, and it survived, so that's great. I'm really proud of it. I really like the fit of it. The only thing I don't like is the shoulder pleat. You're supposed to to gather the shoulders, but because I had quilted the lining, it was too bulky to gather, so I just pleated it, and I don't really love how that looks. My husband says nobody will notice it. He's probably right. I don't really have any clothes that go with it. I don't really know how to style it, but I'm used to wearing so many layers, and this is so warm. I'm only wearing a t-shirt underneath and I'm sweaty, which like for Canadian winter is pretty impressive. I'll probably just wear it with the black jeans, black t-shirt, and a belt. I think it'll function in my wardrobe as more of like a sweater type garment instead of a jacket type garment. This is gonna be the only garment that I make in this video. It took me 2 weeks to make, and seeing as I work pretty well full-time, I can't be making more than one garment per video. One garment per video, one video every 2 weeks is something that I think I can maintain. My next video will be another thrift haul. This time will be yarn focused because I hit the jackpot. And then the video after that will be a continuation of my Roberts Wood series. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for subscribing. Have a lovely day. Goodbye.